Let's bring in Peter King, NBCSports.com, columnist and, of course, the must-read football morning in America. Pete, thanks for joining us. The weirdest thing that happened on the field over the weekend was what?
I would say that the Philadelphia Eagles looked like the mid-season 2017 Philadelphia Eagles. Not necessarily blowing people out all the time, but competent with a good defense and a quarterback that makes enough plays to win. And, obviously, as the season went on in 2017, Carson Wentz got a lot better than that. But I would say the Eagles coming back from their comatose state was the biggest surprise.
The game's coming up tonight. I mentioned that I was told that Tuesday wouldn't work because it wouldn't be fair to the Chiefs, and I just ran the stats. No team has played 3 games over a 10-game span since 1939. How much thought was given to moving that game to a standalone on Tuesday, Pete?
A lot of thought was given to that, Dan. And I think in an ideal world, that's what the NFL would have done. It would have given the NFL another day of significant primetime space. But I think that out of fairness, it just really wasn't fair to the Chiefs. And I think the one other thing about all of this is that people kind of forget too, it wouldn't have been all that fair to the Patriots either, just in terms of, in terms of competition, because the Patriots would be coming home at 4 a.m. Wednesday on a very short week to get ready to play Denver, and Denver would have had 10 days of prep time. The Patriots, even though you can say, well, the Patriots are better, they'll win the game anyway. That's not how you look at those things. And so I think for all concerned, even though this is going to be a very long day for the Patriots, I think it's the fairest way to go about it.
Adam Schefter reported that no positive test this morning with the Titans here. So I guess we're playing football tonight, those 2 games. But then where do we stand with the Titans getting ready for Buffalo next week?
Well, the Titans, to even consider opening the facility on Wednesday, need to have a second straight day of good news on their COVID tests tomorrow morning. And I think then the NFL will get together with the NFLPA and decide if there are if the facility should be open. I do think there's one thing to consider here, Dan, that both the NFL and the NFLPA went into Nashville last week and spent several days looking into how in the world did this thing break out the way it did in Nashville and nowhere else? What exactly happened? So we don't know the answer to that. But as I said in my column today, one very highly placed league source said to me last night, it's the Marlins all over again. So the NFL has to make absolutely sure that all the loopholes that caused that to happen in the first place are closed.
Yeah, and I also, people bring this up, you mentioned it in your column, where they're like, hey, just to push the Super Bowl back. It's not that easy to just push the Super Bowl back, just to make up a couple of games. But can you see a scenario where the contingency plans are, we are going to push the Super Bowl back?
There of course is a scenario where they'd push the Super Bowl back. But as I wrote today, you can't predict what's going to happen. Here's one scenario that was floated to me. Suppose that there are, let's say, 6 games that need to be played that don't get played this year. And let's just say that not a single one of them is a win and you're in playoff scenario. That all it would be was finishing out the season and or maybe having instead of being the 5th seed, you're the 7th seed in the playoffs. In that case, the NFL almost certainly would not have a week 18, on January 10th to replay these games because they really don't mean. Whereas if there are 6 games and this is at stake and a division is at stake and all this is at stake, I think they would then be more inclined to have a week 18. But Dan, you can't answer the question until you're confronted with whatever the scenario is.
The situation with Cam Newton, so he doesn't travel with the team, and then how do they evaluate his status then for the Denver game?
Well, Cam Newton is going to have to be negative on multiple consecutive days before he's going to be allowed to rejoin the Patriots. And over the weekend, I heard that Newton was, either asymptomatic or not showing a lot of significant symptoms.
Mm.
If that's the case, and if he is okay, let's just say, then he could still show that he has still has COVID, and so he's got to test negative multiple days in a row in order to be let back in the building. And so I don't know where we are with that, Dan. And the NFL, because it protects the privacy of its employees, you're probably not going to hear anything until you hear, hey, Cam off, and he's back in the building.
I know you don't deal in speculation. You are fair to coaches, but from what you hear, though, about these coaches when it comes to Bill O'Brien in Houston or Adam Gase with the Jets, we talk about hot seats here. How warm are those seats in those places and maybe any other place around the NFL?
I think probably in order right now, it would be 1, Gase, 2, Dan Quinn, 3, Matt Patricia, and Bill O'Brien, probably close to being tied. All of those positions are in jeopardy. And, look, on the one hand, you could say that, hey, Bill O'Brien has coached that team for 6 years and he's won 4 division titles. That's as many division titles as the Giants have won in this century. So you say, well, geez, give him a little bit of rope here, let him coach his way out of this. But I think there's a little bit of a weariness in some sectors of that organization. And also, they haven't gone far in the playoffs, and he hasn't distinguished himself as a general manager. So we'll see. But again, he's got time to get out of this, but he's really going to have to work his way out of this, and this team is going to have to be a lot better than it has been so far.
Great stuff as always in the column, Peter. It's Football Morning in America. Peter King from NBCSports.com. Thank you for joining us, Pete.
You're welcome, Dan. Have a good day.
All right.